Working long hours is a way of life in Japan, so much so that some occasionally die from it. Karoshi is a term that means death by overwork. So why are people working so hard, and can it be fixed?
Japan has some of the longest working hours in the world. Nearly a quarter of Japanese companies have their employees work more than 80 hours of overtime per month. Those extra hours are often unpaid. Today, Japan's corporate culture is driven by the so-called salaryman.
The salaryman is defined by his loyalty to his company
And expected to spend his entire career working for the same firm.
Not only does he work long hours in the office, but it's also assumed he'll participate in after-work activities too, like drinking with colleagues.
And they're not taking enough time off. In 2017, one survey found that despite being entitled to 20 days off per year, Japanese workers left 10 of those days unused, topping every other country in the survey. You don't have to be in the confines of corporate walls to feel the impact of its work culture.
It's 3 a.m. Thursday morning right now in Tokyo. I'm in the area of Ginza. Every few minutes I see a man wearing a suit holding a briefcase.
The nation's work ethic dates back to what's referred to as Japan's economic miracle, which was its dramatic economic growth beginning in the 1950s, which propelled it to become the world's second largest economy. Inside Japan's corporations, the culture emphasizes the success of a company as a whole to be more important than any single individual, which might explain why one study found that 63% of Japanese felt guilty for taking paid leave. But perhaps more concerning is this: long work hours don't necessarily mean high productivity. In fact, Japan has the lowest productivity amongst the G7 nations. Earlier I mentioned the term karoshi. It means death by overwork. It's legally recognized by the government and usually is marked by a heart attack, stroke, or suicide due to stress. There's hundreds of cases of karoshi reported annually, although some argue these cases are underreported and that the real number could exceed that by up to 10 times.
An employee of the advertising firm Dentsu jumped to her death in 2015. The cause was said to have been depression caused by overwork.
The case generated widespread attention and renewed calls to change the long working hours and illegal unpaid overtime, highly common in Japan.
The firm was fined for violating labor standards because she was reportedly forced to work more than 100 hours of overtime per month.
The company's CEO even resigned over the controversy.
After the death, Dentsu made some changes within the company. One of them, the lights in the office now turn off at 10 p.m. every night in an effort to force employees to leave. Both the government and companies are now actively trying to reduce the number of working hours here.
And there are some early signs of hope. Japan's government has considered several initiatives to curb the number of hours spent at the office, including making it mandatory to take at least 5 vacation days a year, and requiring a rest period between the end of one day and the start of another. In 2016, a new holiday, Mountain Day, was started, bringing Japan's number of annual public holidays to 16. And in 2017, the government launched an initiative called Premium Fridays, in which it encouraged companies to allow their employees to leave at 3 p.m. on the last Friday of the month, promoting consumer spending and less time in the office. But one study found that less than 4% of employees in Japan actually left early on the first Premium Friday, which is why, despite these initiatives, a cultural challenge still looms. Since Japan's culture emphasizes the group over the individual, well, no one wants to be the first one to leave the office. And there's another reason that there's pressure on people to work hard. Japan's economy is in danger, and in order to maintain its massive size, Japan needs to put in the hours. Japan lost its spot as the world's second largest economy to China in 2011, a title that it had previously held for 42 years.
Japan is dealing with a labor crisis. Its population is aging fast and its birth rate is in decline. That means its total population is going down.
And in the next 50 years, it's projected to shrink by nearly a third. The population is expected to go from 127 million in 2015 to just 88 million by 2065. There's two likely ways that a nation can compensate for the labor shortage: immigrants or robots. Japan has always been less inclined to accept immigrants. In fact, its percentage of foreign workers is tiny compared to other nations of large economies. So without more immigrants, it's looking to robotics to fill in the gap. Its robotics industry has spanned from hospitality to manufacturing, and now even reaching farms by creating robots that milk cows. But whether technology could open the door for a better work-life balance for Japan's workforce still remains to be seen.
Japan is a highly developed country with a liberal democracy, and yet it has the oldest continuing monarchy in the world. So how does Japan's monarchy actually work? Well, Japan's imperial family is a hereditary monarchy, not unlike those which are common in Europe and the Middle East. The head of the family is the emperor, and according to Japan's constitution, he is the symbol of the state and of the unity of the people. As such, the emperor's role is largely that of a figurehead. That is, he attends diplomatic functions, provides support after natural disasters, awards honors, and performs a number of other symbolic duties. In fact, the emperor only has two formal responsibilities: appointing the prime minister, as designated by parliament, and appointing the chief justice, as designated by the cabinet. The emperor does not take part in the lawmaking process and, in fact, is rarely even seen by the public. Since Emperor Akihito took the throne in 1989, he has only addressed the country on television once prior to his recent appearance. Japan's imperial family has existed for thousands of years, and their role has evolved throughout history. From the 12th to the 19th centuries, Japan was ruled by shoguns, or military dictators. Similar to today's prime ministers, their authority was only legitimate if it was approved by the emperor. But when the shogunate dissolved in 1868, a new constitution gave the emperor the authority to create and enforce laws and exercise supreme command of the army and navy. This lasted until the aftermath of World War II, when the occupying United States imposed a new constitution, barring the emperor from taking part in politics. This era marked not only a shift in the emperor's sovereignty, but also in his public persona. According to Japanese mythology, the first emperor in 660 BC, as well as each of the 124 rulers who succeeded him, are descendants of the sun goddess of Japan's Shinto faith. In fact, the Japanese word for emperor literally translates to heavenly sovereign, and throughout history, emperors have even been referred to as gods. This narrative was reinforced by centuries of tradition, as well as government propaganda, and during the Second World War, it culminated in imperial cults, kamikaze bombers, and other fanaticism. After Japan lost the war, the emperor publicly announced that he was not a god, and rejected the belief that emperors are divine.
With a population of 128 million, and situated on islands that together would almost fit inside the state of California, Japan is the world's third largest economy and the fourth largest importer of U.S. products. However, economic growth has been anemic, and the government continues to modify economic policies in an effort to reduce the national debt and boost consumer spending. Japan's aging population is also often seen as a drag on the economy, but this also presents business opportunities in Japan to U.S. exporters in sectors like medical devices and equipment, pharmaceuticals, healthcare facilities and infrastructure, biotechnology, and robotics. Other fast-growing markets include advanced manufacturing, cybersecurity, and e-commerce. In addition, Japan's strategic alliance with the U.S. provides opportunities in the space, defense, and security industries. It's also important to note that Japanese consumers tend to be demanding, and government regulations set product standards at very high levels. To support American exporters, the U.S. Commercial Service has offices and market experts in Japan to help spot opportunities and ease access to this challenging but potentially very rewarding market. So how can your business best prepare for success in the land of the rising sun? And why should U.S. companies export to Japan?
Why should a U.S. company even look at Japan? I think the compelling case is the affinities that the market and the people offer with American products and solutions, and the fact that this is an economy that is moving again. It has strong political direction, which is transferring into some really important economic reforms. When American companies approach Japan, cultural factors are important for them to address right up front. So when a company comes, we're looking to see them have invested up front in making a personal impression that's smooth and accepted by the Japanese. Name cards are an important piece, so they should be meticulously done bilingually if at all possible. The same for basic company literature is very important. It's important to understand the pace of business in Asia and in Japan in particular, and to know that it's considerably slower than the North American model. So time needs to be invested developing a rapport, finding common interests before lurching directly into brass tacks negotiations on a business deal.
I think if you're going to enter in Japan or any market, you have to understand the true competitive drivers in that market. Japan, for instance, in the context of our industry, is a very dense island, very small geographic area with a very high population. Anytime you deal with a country like Japan that is so densely populated in such a small area, things like power output, things like efficiency matter, because the country does not have room for inefficient solutions. It is a tightly compact place.
If I was to describe what kind of preparatory study or work that a U.S. company should do before they come to Japan, I'd sum it up by just saying extensive. But that means that a firm really has to invest the time up front, have a long-term plan for approaching the market, understand what their objectives are, what the core values are that they don't want to compromise on, and where they are ready to adapt their good or service to Japan. Have a really strong focus before they even approach the market. So some of the most common pitfalls for U.S. companies are making the assumption that the models that they have developed in the United States, in North America, in Western Europe, will similarly succeed in Japan, and that frequently is not the case. Japan is a culture that places an awful lot of importance on presentation, the way an item appeals to the eye, and the U.S. manufacturers, suppliers of an otherwise wonderful product may trip up by not investing enough care in the final presentation of their product. The bottom line, Japan's been a wonderful friend, a developed market with the same sorts of rule of law and transparency that American companies know and expect to find, but more importantly, while it's not a fast growth market by any stretch of the imagination, it's one that's moving again, that's offering new opportunities. Specific projects like the 2020 Summer Olympics offer a wonderful opportunity. And even where Japan faces challenges, like in its graying society, U.S. companies can find the silver lining, if you will, to bring new solutions that will be applied not just in Japan, but across aging societies around the world.
Why are world business leaders increasingly investing in Japan? Japan is transforming in 3 key areas. The world's 3rd largest economy, Japan, keeps growing and boasts further growth potential. Corporate earnings have hit record highs, which allows corporations to invest aggressively to create new market opportunities. For example, regenerative medicine market has become a key growth sector thanks to robust deregulation. The use of robotics is expanding in various fields, boosting productivity. Autonomous driving is quickly becoming a reality with the year 2020 target. The IoT market is also expanding decisively. Japan has always been a leading country for innovation. And it is further accelerating thanks to increasingly active startups and to far-reaching deregulation taking place at every corner of the society. For example, Japan's reviewing period for new drugs has become the shortest in the world. The National Strategic Special Zones system is fostering innovation at the local level. The government is committed to making Japan the most business-friendly country in the world. Japan is a gateway to Asia and is easily accessible from all around the world. Japan is a country with the highest regards for the rule of law and is working to harmonize rules and regulations across borders through multilateral free trade agreements. Japan heartily welcomes foreign professionals who come to Japan to make their dreams come true. In addition, Japan has made strides in simplifying administrative procedures and establishing a unified support environment. Invest in Japan, the land of rising opportunities.